In 2010, I joined the University of Amsterdam as a professor of risk management. And my ambition at the university was to change education quite radically, in the sense that everything I learned when I was a student was not only useless in practice, but it was also harmful, and especially the real paradigm of portfolio theory. It was just, and I was fighting against it. Also, the regulators were using it, everybody was using it, and I was not alone, but I was at the fringe of everything, and so there was a fight. And now actually I was a professor and had to do something. I said, I'm going to change this. And then I made an inaugural speech, and I put it on paper. It was about Minsky and about the human behavior and how it all integrated. And then I showed it to Terry, and Terry said, well, we have to make a documentary about this. And I already knew Ben and Bill, and so then we said, well, great, then we start.
After we made the film, took a while, takes a while to make a film, you went back and showed it at your university to all the professors that are most are neoclassical mainstream. And after they watched it with all the students and everybody, they then penned a letter to the dean asking for you to be fired.
Well, it wasn't that I needed to be fired, but more that they said literally this film makes students very uncomfortable. And then the dean said as a reply, well, it's the essence of science that we need to be uncomfortable. And that's the whole philosophical tension between those people who want to have a paradigm, this is how the world works, and people like me who don't understand how the world works and want different diversity of theories.
But Ben, this film isn't just for economics students, so I'm quite interested. You've got to make economics fun to watch. How did you set about thinking about that?
Well, we were sort of worried.
I mean, the first idea of having puppets and having animations, I mean, we've done a lot of work with animation, injecting animations into documentaries before, and the idea of using those to try and liven up the subject, so it's just not a lot of white middle-aged men talking about economics, and actually try and inject a bit more fun and
obviously
humour to try and keep everyone's attention, because I think luckily no one's asleep here, and I think if it had just been talking heads, there might have been a few more people who would be asleep.
We tried to make a film that we would watch.
Right.
I mean, we're not economists, we're filmmakers, and we just really wanted to try and just something that would keep our attention. And obviously Terry started writing this brilliant stuff straight away, really, the history and, you know, and Theo wrote the boring stuff. And
Thank you.
Terry wrote the fun stuff.
If everyone wants boring stuff, come to
Victoria, so from that film you could say, well, isn't this just about regulation? We just lost the plot on regulating the financial system. And that's why the crisis happened. Do we really need a whole-scale reinvention of economics teaching in universities?
I think you're right. In the context of this film, you might say that, but then I think there's the deeper question behind the film of the whole question of Minsky, right? And why wasn't Minsky a part of the curriculum? Why have I never heard about Minsky in my degree? I think a lot of other economists won't have heard about Minsky in their degrees. And the answer to that, I think, is deeper than just a question of regulation or deregulation or even of power in the financial sector. It really goes into the core of how a curriculum is created and how our education is set up. And that's when you start to realize it's not just Minsky that's missing. It's so many views and economists. And if you start to dig deeper there, then you realize it's not just the crisis that we didn't foresee and that we didn't include in economics education, it's so much more. So it's almost like this film is a window into just one part of what's missing from economics education.
Well, that's quite interesting, because you mentioned their power. Is this actually a political film?
I think it's your film. I think it is a political film in that and I'm not going to do that
Would
thing
you
where
like to
just
handle
push
that
the
hot
question to
potato? Have
someone
you
else.
made a political film here? Or is it
We intentionally tried to stay away from sort of political parties and align ourselves. And I don't know if it's political. I mean, we've tried to keep away from the point of views. And what we've tried to say is just let the students, let the economists learn about the different ways, and say, is there a better way? Is you know, if you don't know that there are alternates, you've got no chance of realising there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I do think that there is something political about only showing one view, and it's almost like the necessity for this film just goes to show that power in terms of who is distributing knowledge isn't even. And so I do think that there's something political there. It might not be partisan.
I think it's a political in economics. Political.
Very niche kind of.
Yeah, if I can add, it's not partisan. That's a good point. I mean, I have seen. You see, Paul Krugman here was very left wing, and there were right wing politicians you saw, and they all started to believe in the fact how you could use these equilibrium models to calculate things. So Krugman makes a joke about it himself. That he uses these models, but then in the end you shouldn't take them too serious. But that's what happened. They took them too serious, and I've seen. And I'm totally apolitical, and I've seen left-wing and right-wing people not abusing them because they didn't do it with the wrong purpose, but they started to believe in it, and that's, I think, to me it's apolitical. But of course, you have some focus in your film.
I mean, the film is obviously we're having one point of view, right? We're not doing the BBC. What is it? Balance. False balance, right?
Balance.
Whatever that is, right? I think they've thrown it out. And I think, from what we started to discover, this view is so minute in the grand scheme of the education that we just wanted to get across our idea.